If you thought you could not love the tiny man, Baby Yoda, any more than you already do, well, you're simply wrong, folks. Welcome to the Mando Fan Show. This is our show all about the Mandalorian, and we have brought the show back, as you may have noticed, to talk all about Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, and this week we're talking about episode 5 called Practical, which is all about the tangible, physical, practical effects that went into making the show. Last week we talked about the technology, which is more the digital aspect, and this week it's all about the old school stuff that's using a lot of new school technology to make the old school stuff better to use. With me, as always, James Baney and Lacey Gilleran. So what we do here is typically give our favorite moment or most standout moment, maybe not our favorite, but something that stood out to us about each episode to kind of get the ball rolling. So I'm going to start with you on this one, Lacey. Practical effects, pretty cool in terms of seeing how this thing goes down. What was your takeaway from this episode or a favorite moment? What stood out to you for the episode on practical effects?
So this episode's now my favorite. I feel like I'm falling into that Mandalorian trap of now this is my favorite, but it was my favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite.
Good thing you didn't rate the first one a 9.
Thanks, James. So yeah, no, that is good, but this is now a 10, and whatever comes after, who knows? Anyway, it's early. So, that being said, my favorite part or standout part, because there were so many favorite parts, my standout part is actually the end of the episode where they talk about the importance of legacy and working with people that made original practical effects and then working with the people that do stuff now to make it, nostalgic and call back to what they did that worked so well, while also using new technologies to reinforce, movie magic and making it work. Mm-hmm. And I loved the example that they gave, which was the guy that did Salacious Crumb. They brought him back, the guy that did that puppet, and had him come in and do it again.
Tony McVeigh, I think they said his name was, yeah.
Yeah, and I had to laugh when they brought up Celebration because they talked about how everyone freaked out at that clip of the Qualian monkey, whatever, in the cage while the other one's getting roasted. And I remember when we all saw it and we reacted to it, that's the one thing that was stuck out to us because we were like, why would they do that?
Yeah.
And it made me laugh when Dave Filoni was like, originally he was laughing and they thought that was too mean. He's like, but yet they're cooking him, so it can't be that mean. And I was like, that's such a funny sense of humor of it's just so good.
I think he was right and they should have had it laughing.
Right, because the you just were like, oh god,
yeah,
you just so terrible.
I always saw that species as soulless and just thought everything is funny, and I thought that would have been more in tune with it if it was laughing at its friend, not smart enough to realize it was next.
Right. Right. And then something about it was kind of similar to the Porg thing in The Last Jedi, where you see that little baby Porg with the big eyes and you're like, oh my god, they're going to get eaten.
Yeah, they went with the cute angle instead of that's pretty funny angle.
Yeah, but away from that, just the idea of bringing back the original guy because he's the best person that could have done it. We hear that a lot with The Mandalorian, and we heard it from the panel to now to interviews, that Jon Favreau really searches for the best of the best, and I think this solidified that. He went to those people, the model builders, whoever, to get those people, to bring them in, to make sure that classic Star Wars is being represented, and he's getting the best of the best.
Yeah, I agree, and it's funny, Filoni's and you could tell Favreau likes the old school, the romance of making live action stuff, which sometimes it's a little tough, a little gritty, and he's like, yeah, we had this really big guy Mike in there, and he had to really squeeze his arm up there, and I love it. I love hearing that stuff. It's so funny.
Yeah.
James, did you have anything from this episode that stood out to you, or you found as your favorite moment?
I did. I wanted to mention though that section though where they were talking about Celebration though, because it was a personal connection that I think the three of us had because we were there.
Yeah.
Right.
And they mentioned it like 3 times because they were like, because Favreau says, I think that got a big moan and groan. And then Filoni's like, yeah, it did. And then Kathleen Kennedy's like, I think it even got the biggest reaction and stuff. And I was like, I literally was there with the scene when they're talking about this. So it felt...
It was cool.
I don't know. It almost made me feel like I was on set.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But I think, I don't know, there were a lot in this episode that I was like, well, this is probably going to be my favorite part. And then the next part would come up and I'm like, actually, no, this is pretty good too. But I think the one that I thought was really funny was when they were talking about IG-11 and how he couldn't be too cool. And that in one way they designed him to walk was just using the fact that he was on like the rollers. And they said they, instead of needing to replace him later, they would just roll him along and he kind of like bobbles and hops.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just thought sometimes when things work, as stupid as they are, they work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most people would have their camera on a tripod, but if it's like duct taped up or whatever, it still works.
Right.
You look at you back off a little bit and you see that he's like on a shopping cart.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, something's weird here, but yeah.
I agree. I think, and I think, didn't they say something like, we got way more use out of that one. I don't know if they had a name for it. Usually they name those things, but like Bruce the Shark, but then they expected the one on the wheels. They're like, we were actually able to use him for headshots and all these things. So it almost like gave it a little bit of a personality. And now when you see close-ups of the thing, you're like, I know that there's wheels under that on, like you say, a shopping cart.
It was literally like a mannequin pole. They were using it for lighting reference, which is hilarious because you'd think that they would use that in like, in post to then reference, and they were like, no, this actually looks pretty good.
Right.
Let's just leave it.
It's so cool because like just last week we we're talking about the volume and like this game changing, like it screws up your eyes and your eyes aren't advanced enough to realize what's real and what's different, and now we're like, yeah, this thing's putting in on a shopping cart, and they thought that was the best thing to use.
I mean, and that is the whole point of this episode, is them saying that it's never about 100% practical. It's never about 100% CG.
Yeah.
It's the merging of the two.
The balance. I don't know if it was Hal Hickel or whoever said that they felt like, or maybe it was even Rick Famuyiwa who said that they felt like there was an equal proportionate and a balance in how they made it, and it wasn't heavy on one or the other, like you say.
I feel like that was Rick when he just kicks off the episode.
Yeah,
Okay,
side note, they have that interview with him on set, and I'm like, why isn't the show like this?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I was going to bring that up later, but I felt like this episode was way less reliant on the round table.
Yes, and when the episode kicked off with John and Rick standing there talking, I'm like, oh, here we go. And then they're like, okay, well, I'll catch you later. And I feel like it was one of those things that they had a crew following them around, but didn't plan for these interviews. And then John was like, come over here, let's shoot this interview real quick. And the camera guy's like, all right. Because it seemed very like on the spot type of interview. Yeah. But it just made me want that so much. Like that follow around Director and the Jedi type stuff. But it was
it's just like movie making in general. They say, you have an idea of what it's going to be, and then in the end you have to like change things up, and it wasn't exactly how you thought. And I think that kind of goes for all the behind the scenes stuff too. I think they just kind of like hire the people, and they're like, look, we don't know what we're doing yet. Just film it. Yeah. Talk to people.
Get as much
interact.
as you can.
Do whatever. And then, when you look at it later, it's like, did they not plan this whole round table thing? No, probably not.
They didn't,
They probably just knew they had this big catalog of behind the scenes shots, and whenever they talk about it, they go, do we have a shot to cut to? No, we don't. Okay. Do we have a shot to cut to? Yes, we do. Okay, cool. We can show the one we shot with this guy.
Right.
Yeah. It makes me think of the one part with...
It's written around the round table.
Right, where Jon Favreau is with Baby Yoda, and they're doing the part where he holds the fire, And he goes, okay, well, Baby Yoda's number 1 on the call sheet, so let's get as much footage as possible. And I've been there so often where I'm like, just get as much as you can because you'd never know what you're going to need in post. And it's just so funny to hear that from someone like Jon Favreau, who's just like going with it. He's like, just get as much as you can, all different angles, and we'll pick which one in post. And I'm like, I have been there so many times where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shoot everything. And if I don't use it, I don't use it. It ends up in a folder somewhere on a desktop. But as long as I have it.
Real timeout real quick. James, I'm just noticing your mic doesn't sound like it's your mic. I don't know if...
Yeah, but OBS is working.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Same.
Sorry.
But I can probably, because all my preference got messed up.
As long as it's working on
if
your end.
If OBS is fine, then don't change
just leave
anything.
It. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so that was one of my bigger takeaways, Lacey, was that Favreau is way more involved in the hands-on element of this show than I think maybe I had realized.
Right.
He's literally in several sequences in this documentary now. He is hands-on directing.
Yeah.
He is saying, like, no, take the cannon and swerve this way as Taika's standing right there, and it's his episode. And I'm not saying he, like, stepped on their toes or anything. It's obviously his show. And I don't know, maybe showrunners do get more involved, and we don't see these documentaries a lot. I'm not an expert in film production, but...
I think it depends on the person.
I think, and we know Favreau's that type of guy who's so energetic and he wants to be involved and that sort of thing. Maybe they're like, we're not going to sap his energy because then it'll affect the whole show. But I think that him being involved and being there so much and being really his hands on the clay did make a show that had 5 different directors over 8 episodes feel more cohesive.
Yeah, I think it's clear that he really cares. We always knew that. But in this episode, especially, like you said, him showing how personal this project is and saying, like, this is like me picking up my action figures and saying, I want this or I want that. That's what I'm playing with.
That's it, yeah.
That stood out to me, that line from him, because I was like, this is on such a personal level for him. And I think a lot of people are with Star Wars, but with John, it seems like he really is like, this is my baby. Not just Baby Yoda, but baby entire show.
Right. And you know what? That was close to my favorite moment, him holding his hands out, simulating playing with action figures.
Yeah, and he's like, I want this ship, I want this person, I want this.
My Boba Fett's going to fight this, and then, yeah.
And I loved the explanation of why he chose different characters. Like, he's like, I wanted
the D-list? Yeah.
Yeah, because I would have that figure. I would want this if it was so fun to watch because you're like piecing it together and you kind of wonder as a fan, like, why did they go this way? And you realize it's really just because he liked it. And he was like, this is really fun. I want to do this. And sometimes that's all it takes. I
agree. I was going to say that was my favorite part. The whole, like, these D-list Star Wars characters getting character arcs. But Gina Carano, I don't know. She had a very small part in this show, but something about her saying she was at Thanksgiving dinner and her little sister made fun of her because she said blasters.
And she's like, oh yeah,
blasters. And she's like, yeah, blasters. And she's like, that's when I knew I was a Star Wars nerd officially. And I joke like you're gonna love Baby Yoda more, but like Gina Carano, it's like she does not stop making you love her.
She's charming.
And, oh my God. And it's so like genuine, and it doesn't feel like one of those things like, oh, we're on camera now. Okay. Well, I really loved it. It's like, no, she's like all in, like you said a few weeks ago, or even during the Mando fan show, our first season of this, she's doing her own stunts and all this, so like just everything and every take and stuff. But her like talking about that and Baby Yoda and like Jon Favreau saying she was out-acted. I think that's my favorite part of that whole episode.
He's like,
I laughed.
That baby out-acted you. Like, that's so funny.
I laughed so hard at that because we know that Jon Favreau had that one-on-one with her, and she talked about this at Celebration, like, you can do this and stuff like that. But to see that he was so confident in her confidence that he was able to still bust her chops is fantastic, I thought.
I thought that was so funny because the whole episode's like, that big section is about how cute Baby Yoda is and how everybody loves it and it takes over attention. Then she's like, and then I'm like, oh, I did a great scene. And Jon Favreau's like, nah, dog. This puppet out acted you. And then you look over and the puppet's like 3 dudes with like big controllers. Like,
yeah, the wires like Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Up until today, I've been under the impression that on set, it was referred to as the child.
Yeah, and they called it
And-
baby.
And I was like, not anywhere it seems like they ever called him the child. It seems like on set they referred to it as baby.
Yeah.
Just baby.
Yeah,
Right.
baby.
And I don't know. Somebody said Yoda baby at one point too, and I was like, are they ahead of the curve? I mean, I guess I don't really know like what else to call it, but were they calling it Baby Yoda before the mass saw it as Baby Yoda? Because I don't know, like I said, I was under the impression that they were like, well, it's the child, and the reason we're calling it the child is it kind of is a code name anyway, and that's just how they referred to it. And now it seems weird. It seems like the child is only in like
Promotional
official
stuff.
interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like merchandise,
And so
as
I'm
they
like,
call it, the child.
okay. So I guess they're calling it baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bryce called it baby in her interview and scenes on set with the
to
children.
the kids,
yeah.
which was on set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where if you showed someone a picture of it or the puppet of it who didn't know anything about it and said, "What is this?" and they'd be like, "Oh, it looks like Yoda as a baby or a baby Yoda." So
Right.
I think it's almost that instinctual, like that's what that is. I identify that.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I just think it kind of seems like we saw the episode and then we're like, they say it's the child, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna call it Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And that's how like the rest of the world. And then you almost see like these interviews where Dave's kind of like, okay, it's not really Baby Yoda,
Sure.
but it's like, but I get it. He says,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting because I feel like this is all of a sudden now today, just because of this episode, I'm like revealed to a whole other world that I didn't think was happening.
They still didn't show the shot of George with Baby Yoda yet.
And
Because you know that's
what?
somewhere. You know that's on a camera somewhere.
Maybe not, because that looks like it was a cell phone, like.
Quick photo.
But
Yeah,
I mean, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
But
Because this would have been the episode to be like, oh, everyone loves it. And then a quick shot of George.
so I agree with you completely. I would
Yeah.
love to see that in HD in a video and see like him like ooh, or something,
Yeah.
But how about speaking of that, Werner Herzog? Like that was amazing.
Oh my God. I love him. I want him to like come back. I know his character.
And we had known, like they had somewhere else. This was already revealed that he was doing this.
In
I
the
forget
trailer.
where.
The trailer for it.
Oh, okay. Because then
Yeah.
when Deborah Chow's talking about it, I'm like, I've seen this.
Yep.
I've heard. Okay. Because he's like, she said he was directing the puppet and
Yeah.
stuff.
And then
I
she's
think-
directing him, who's directing the puppet. Yeah.
And meanwhile, the guys in the background with the remotes are like, okay.
Yeah, the puppeteers he doesn't realize he's actually directing the puppeteers.
Right.
Yeah.
Commit to
Right.
the magic is what she said, which I loved that phrasing. Like just
Yeah.
committing to what is that childlike thing about Star Wars, which is,
Right.
I'm sure we all grew up with it, with like Sesame Street and Muppets. Like you kind of grew up with picturing puppets and real people together. And I think
Right.
Star Wars does it better than anything else with Yoda. So they had to commit to this and like make it a thing.
And how?
I mean, Muppets is a really good example, Lacey. Like, I could easily imagine being on the set of Sesame Street or a Muppets full-length film,
Yeah.
like, Most Wanted or something, and just being involved in these scenes with certain characters where you've been talking to it for long enough in the scenes that when you want to, like, correct something about it, you would just address the puppet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you turn this way when you're saying that line? And it's because there's a face there, and that's who you're interacting with, and it's
Right.
alive, and it very clearly seems sentient because it's talking back to you every time you address it,
Right.
even behind the scenes, because those people, they don't turn it off.
Right.
They're not like cut and then they're like, oh man, that was a great, and they stand up.
Yeah, you see the bloopers of
it's not
Sesame
like that.
Street, yeah.
They're still just kind of sitting there, and they stay in character and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But like, and there's so much here, especially in this sequence with the Baby Yoda thing. And I guess we have to get into really the meat and potatoes of making Baby Yoda and how they brought him about. But
3
like-
months. I was surprised it only took 3 months.
me too. But Deborah Chow, it's like every time she speaks, I just have so much more and more confidence in like just giving her a Star Wars project and being like,
She's
just
wonderful.
direct.
I think you're just focusing on her.
I don't know what it is. Every time she talks, I'm like, she has this aura and confidence about her that is subdued and subtle. It's not like an abrasive, but the way she talks about things and like the balance. She's always using that word of balance of like not going too high, too low, and the emotions of the puppets, but you need to get it, but you don't want it to be overdone. And I'm just like, I am so excited about Kenobi, and that she's gonna be doing that whole thing. But I know we got to get to the Baby Yoda thing. But so my thing on the Baby Yoda stuff is Favreau talking about that Trolls thing he was doing and how it's all about the ears and the eyes.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a really great point, because Yoda's mouth was always just like this flat line, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
but the eyes always sold the original Yoda, and then the ear movement I think takes it to a new level. So I thought that was very interesting.
That shot of the ears in the episode 1, that's when I screamed. Like when they do the kind of from behind the little ear.
Yeah.
You know immediately what it is by the silhouette, going back to the previous episode talking about silhouettes or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Those ears give it away. But there's a term, and I'm blanking on it right now. There's a term of when something's super cute, when its eyes are really big. I'm trying to think what the term is, but I would look really smart right now if I remembered this term. But there is a term that it's like if the eyes are big, it's going to be cuter to you, or like oversized features.
There's this video of, I think, Trey Parker on the set of Minions, and he kind of revealed, I forget, it's similar. I think he kind of reveals that there's like this behind the scenes formula that is like, well, what you do is you take a character, right? And then you like cut them down to like 1/3 size, and then you raise their eyes and you raise their voice by 6 half steps or something like that. And he goes, that's 100% the Minions. They just use the formula, and the formula is immediately like, if you do this to your character, you will sell so much more, or you will make him that much more relatable to children and to people in general, because they will think it's cute. And then you like think about the Minions and you're like, yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly special about them. They fall so perfectly into that, like, let's shrink them, let's make their eyes big, let's make them go ba 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 ba. You're like, okay, like I see what you're doing, it's working, but I feel weird about it because they're so the formula,
Yeah.
And definitely, I always say that too. I say girls think anything that is a tiny version of anything, no matter how realistic it is cute. Like you have a like mall, right? And then you put like little mall, and it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. You could have a chair, or you could have a little chair, and all of a sudden the little chair is so cute, right? Yeah.
Or Gizmo is a great example from Gremlins.
Yes.
Yeah, that's almost exactly the same as the Baby Yoda formula.
When they were moving the eyes and stuff, I was like, wow, that reminds me of Gizmo.
And the way it turns its head.
Yeah.
And you guys are right. The ears, man. I know what my dog is thinking because of his ears. He's listening,
right? And
then he gets like concerned, and then his ears go back up when he's
like sad,
thinking about things. Yeah.
It's crazy. How many of the puppeteers, and they kind of say like we're like a band, and like we're get
jamming.
We're jamming, and we get into sort of a rhythm together.
I knew you were going to like that part. As soon as he said it, I was like, John's going to like this jamming part.
Yeah, well, I figured James might too. But, he's like, no, I had to premeditate knowing that he was... Did you say no?
I said, I don't really jam.
I don't jam.
You're not a jam band? You don't like OAR, Dave Matthews?
Fish.
No.
I hate jam bands. No. Sorry.
But the guy,
we wrote parts, man.
The guy premeditating was like, well, I knew he was going to turn left, so I wanted to get the hand there first. And like that is, it sounds painstaking. It really does. And was one of those things where, and not to go back to Empire, but like I think it was George Lucas or someone saying if Baby Yoda doesn't work, the movie's a failure. And I almost feel like that's the case for The Mandalorian too. Like if in 2020 you're trying to pull off this puppet and use this technology, and it's gonna like steal everyone's attention, which it really did. You got to make it work, and I feel like they really did, and especially Favreau's awareness to, which may be a little bit of a dig at Yoda from the prequels. He's like, I want anything we do CG with this puppet, the puppet has to also be able to do.
Yeah. Speaking of painstaking, the amount of revisions and additions of Baby Yoda they did design-wise was kind of crazy.
I'm glad they picked the one they did, though.
Yeah, and the one they picked was actually, that's the design they threw on T-shirts after they didn't have any merch. I was like, oh, there's the thing that's on everything, which is from Chris Alsman, right? He does a lot of the concept art, by the way. I see his stuff all the time. Like, he designed, I think, BB-8 and stuff.
He did Rogue One and Force Awakens, yeah.
Yeah. So it just makes me laugh because they're like, oh, and we went with this design. I was like, oh, you don't say, because it's on everything.
Is it really?
Yes. Shirts.
Wow. Yeah, you don't remember that, John?
It was just
I
a
was
square
like,
of the shirt. And like,
I remember, it was like the first round of merch came out and Mandalorian merch. And I was like clicking through and I was like, okay, that's cute. I get that. And then like the next one, I'm like, okay.
You just cropped
and the
this.
next thing, and I'm like, stop using this image. I do not care about this image. And literally, have you ever been on somebody's like Facebook and then like they will have like a picture of them and then you click through and it's like a recropped picture of them and then like a close up and you're like, I don't even know why would you upload that? Like, what is
happening? They just forgot to delete the extras. Yeah.
I get, or they set it as their cover photo and then like it changes and it
right
or something, and I'm like, why do you have like 10 pictures of the same thing? Like, stop. Like, I don't know. That's how I felt. You probably already did.
Yeah, you definitely probably did.
Probably. I don't know.
But I think for me, one of the reasons this episode was so great is because we talk about this a lot on TRB, and I know this is something that I always say is like, it's so important, no matter where the technology takes us in movie making, to always have it rooted in the practical stuff. And if you look back at movies that have aged well, it's because they use practical stuff. And they
absolutely.
didn't go too far in advance of what they're capable of, because then the technology is just going to surpass them. So a good example is like Jurassic Park. No matter what you do, Jurassic Park is going to look great because they were like, you know what? We can make animatronic dinosaurs and it's going to look great. And it still holds up no matter what year it is. Or like Titanic. Titanic has its moments that are a little dated that you're like, okay, this is clearly done in this year. But overall, James Cameron did something that no one else could do because he built a Titanic and then sunk it. Like there's stuff like that you just look at it and you're like, this will never look bad to me. And I'll always be in the world because they took the time to use the technology that was given to them at that time frame and didn't go. We kind of talked about this a little on TRB, was Toy Story 1. Toy Story 1's great, but it's clearly dated on the technology that they were capable of doing at the time. Whereas you look at it now, Toy Story 4 or 5 or whatever we're at this point. Yeah. And you're like, oh, this looks amazing. But then you put it side by side with Woody in 1 and you're like, oh, God.
Right.
Like, what happened? And
you can't go from watching 1 to 4.
Right. And like even stuff like, we talk about this too, Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks now would look completely different than Jar Jar Binks then. And yes, they used the head to make people look at the right place and tried to use mocap and stuff like that. But it's not the same as the textures that they can apply to CG now. Well,
even look at, there's always been all these attempts to try to make like these cool shark movies and stuff. But like
Jaws is...
Like Deep Blue Sea looks so terrible. And it was CG sharks. But you go back to 1975 and Jaws, even though the shark is like bigger than a shark's supposed to be, and they over dramatize it, it's still, when it jumps out of the water the first time, he says, why don't you try chumming some of this, you know what? I'm like, that looks legit.
I don't know a lot about Jaws, but they used like an animatronic, right?
Yeah, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
It was this
Yeah.
big clunky thing. Yeah.
But like they put the shark on the boat. You know,
Yes,
they had
yeah.
the people on the boat. It makes
Yeah.
sense. It sells what you're looking at.
right. Exactly.
And I think
Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah.
And then leads into the model building stuff because you have a combination now of CG and realistic stuff, practical
Yeah.
stuff, that then sells it even more that they were doing back with the first Star Wars movies. That
Yeah.
hasn't changed. And there's a reason that there's certain things that you don't change. But
Right.
at the same time, they were like, well, now we can get more range of motion with these models. We can get more, space in the camera because the models used to be so gigantic. They were like, we can't pull back too far because then we'll just miss everything. But stuff like that is just so cool to me. And I just love the idea that some guy that made models for the original Star Wars probably had to grow out of that role and take on something else given the time. And then Jon Favreau shows up and goes, hey man, I heard you used to make models. You want to come make models again? The guy's like, my life's passion. I can do it again. You know,
Yeah.
because
did you
people
see,
kind of age out of what is needed sometimes because people just go with whatever the technology allows them to do.
Yeah, like that legendary Star Wars guy Phil Tippett who made all the puppets and the tauntauns and everything.
Dinosaur supervisor Phil Tippett. You had one job, Phil.
He like went to his Twitter account and he was like, I'd love to come play on The Mandalorian. And people like lost their mind because they're like, oh, we thought he was done with Star Wars and like
Yeah.
we haven't heard from him and whatever. And he's in the backwoods somewhere with his big white beard and stuff. And people are like, wow, that's crazy. But, you know, Favreau makes me laugh because he's so honest. He's like, we didn't really need miniatures, but a trick that I was told by Guillermo del Toro is if you have them make it, you get to keep it. I'm like,
I laughed
that's the
so hard
funniest
because
thing
that
I've
is
ever heard.
totally something I would do. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to make this so I get to keep it.
Exactly.
Like, that is so me. It's not even
So,
funny.
and Kathleen Kennedy's sitting right there, and she's probably like, you know what? This show's like a big success, so that's fine, I guess.
Like, when I did all the exhibits for, like, Lucasfilm stuff for work, and we had to make signs and printouts for Lucasfilm, I was like, I'm going to keep these signs.
John Knowles said that the graphics for the ships had already been approved.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were questioning the use of miniatures, it was already over budget.
Photoshop
so
John
well,
Knowles.
we really don't know what we're going to do to kind of try to make them as down and dirty and in the garage as we can. And I'll say this too. I know we're like pretty positive about the thing, but I think the practical use of the ships was not good. I don't like it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like when we were watching the footage at Celebration and we saw the ships and stuff and everybody was like, whoa. And I was like, I'm not wowed. I'm not wowed. It looks like a practical ship on a stick and they're like moving it around in space to me.
That's the charm, man.
No, I know. But like, I don't know. Like when he said today in the episode, Dave said that the what are they called? I can't remember. The dinosaur or whatever was stop motion.
Blurgs.
Yeah. That it was stop motion. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because I didn't notice that. But now that you're pointing it out, I go, oh, yeah, I guess it does. But it was believable because stop motion is believable when it's done right. You know, when it's done.
They also had that filter over it where he's looking through the gun. So I think it kind of...
Yeah, sure. So they wanted to do it, but then they also wanted to cover up the fact that it, didn't look perfect maybe.
Yeah.
And they made it look better so it was real stop motion, but it was also like covered up the impractical things. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting when they were talking about this. We only did miniatures and we already were going to do it as a CG thing or whatever. And I was like, then why'd you do the miniatures? I don't know. I mean, like it's cool and I love hearing about it, but it doesn't look good. And I think the biggest one is the beginning of episode 5 where they're having this space battle. And I'm like, I'm not bought in on this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like the space battles in Rogue One to me are believable. The space battle in A New Hope is not because it looks like flying stick spacecraft.
That's fair. I find it funny, like it's been multiple occasions now where in this documentary throughout the course of the 5 episodes where Filoni's like, are we seriously doing this right now? Like in terms of techniques? And
I'm game, but
yeah, and Favreau's like, no.
How are we gonna make that
Favreau's
work?
like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like we're gonna do it. It's gonna be awesome. Like when he was directing his first episode in the bar, Filoni's probably like, this is the first live action thing fans are gonna see me do, and if this thing looks crappy, they're gonna think I suck. And Favreau's just like
he's
don't worry
gonna
about
lose nerd points.
Yeah, like Favreau's like, don't worry about it. This is gonna be great. I love this technique. They did it in this 1943 film called This, and it was like it's just insane.
Yeah.
But the last thing we gotta talk about, well, that I would love to talk about, is back to that D list and giving these like characters that people know from the original trilogy, specifically The Empire Strikes Back with the Ugnaughts and the IG droid, and really giving these characters arcs. And I think that makes you look at those species and those types of characters more in a better light or with more depth retroactively, because you have Queel, which I thought this whole thing was cool, and then the IG droid, of course, which everybody loves. But
I can't believe they recorded Nick Nolte's lines and then played them and then had her act according to what the line was, because usually what they do is they record it and then they have him dub it after the fact. They had him do that first. So they were playing it while she's, like, he said she was listening and then would react, and they do a couple different inflections or whatever, which is normal. But I saw that and I was like, wow, they are doing that kind of backwards, but I kind of love that. Also, I picked up at the beginning of the episode, they had whoever was the Mandalorian, which was not Pedro Pascal, talking and doing Pedro lines. And I was that is not the right delivery of whatever that line was.
Yeah.
It was very interesting because you just hear the voice that's clearly not him, and you're like, oh, yeah, that would make sense that he says the lines, because Chewie says the lines.
Exactly. That's for the other actors only. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was funny that they played it because they've been so kind of protective of the Mandalorian, of what you hear, and we've commented on other episodes where you'd think you would hear him say the lines or hear stuff, and they don't. They play the dubbed line. So this was interesting that they played that, and I was like, oh, okay. Clearly that's not Pedro, but makes sense.
I don't know about, does the voice usually go first or last? You're saying it usually doesn't. Like when they
usually does not. Yeah.
Usually they dub it after. Like Pedro didn't say the lines and then they acted accordingly. They had the stunt guys or whoever was standing in at times act the part, and then he would go and record it later.
John, just for a second, this would be like if James Earl Jones did all of Darth Vader's voice, and then when they were making the movies, they just had James Earl Jones' voice come out of the mask.
So
it's like no, they didn't do it that way. They definitely shot it, with the original actor, and then went back and replaced him later.
Right. They do it with Kylo too. Like Adam Driver probably says the lines, but they go back and post and have him probably record things and then say it again. Yeah. But the cool thing about Kylo, which we always talk about, is that they made the mask work so that he could say the lines and act according to what it would sound like later.
Yeah. So that's kind of the real life version of
which I don't know. Which is not, because when they do stuff like Pixar, like Toy Story and stuff, the actors go first and then they animate based on the performance of the actor. So like Tom Hanks does his thing and they make Woody adapt to what Tom Hanks did.
Sometimes it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point though, John.
Tom Hanks is not matching up to
They do that as well.
Right. Because like
I hate when people say doo-doo. I just did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always
they
just
do that.
A reminder that I have the emotional maturity of an 8-year-old, because I always laugh when people do that. And then the IG droid stuff I thought was really cool too. We talked about it at the top, but giving these characters like full arcs, and you really think about it, like you cared about an IG droid, where previously you knew him from a video game or a comic or some Legends material or just the thing standing on the deck in Empire, and they made you like feel bad for it when it sacrificed itself.
Right.
That is impressive. So that's really grabbing your audience by like the heart and being like, we're gonna make you care about this thing that nobody should ever have cared about, and that is just makes me nervous about what else is going to happen to the characters I really care about in the show
because it wasn't the bounty droid that gave his life. It was the nurse.
The nurse, right. Yeah. I didn't really care in the first episode when he's like, I'm going to self-destruct. I'm like, okay.
But that's kind of the funny thing is, well, not funny, but the cool thing is about Star Wars is that they always make these kind of objects something that you care about with like droids. So I loved the piece where Taika was talking about how in the very beginning of Star Wars, you meet these droids that are in the deserts of Tatooine, and they're dirty and gritty, and they're not like perfectly clean, and it just makes them more human.
It lived in.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the point of Star Wars was that this wasn't the first one. It's already been going on for a long time before you saw.
But that
the world is already lived in.
Yeah, and it
war
goes
torn.
Exactly, and it goes back to like the practical puppetry type stuff where, you know, growing up when I first saw Star Wars the first time, when you see the droids in the desert, you're just like, what is this? What is this magical world that I want to be in? Because you're not used to seeing that. You're used to seeing, obviously, people on screen. And then you see these two funny guys that are going through the desert, and it kind of just sells it. And then it just grows from there, where you talk about how they shot the original movies with, like, the Jawas and the Tread and all this different stuff. And, you know, they talked about how there's this kind of like weird backyard look to it, right? It's kind of like they just pulled where they could and did what they could with the budget, and they tried to stay consistent to that. And I loved that with The Mandalorian, is that they didn't try to outgrow where Star Wars started, which I feel like sometimes with any type of franchise or any type of movie, sometimes they're like, oh, well, we have more money, so we should do this. And they were like, no, even though we have more money, let's still stay consistent to what the look of Star Wars is.
Yeah, I think, and what makes me feel so good about at least the future of The Mandalorian anyway, is like there seems to be this, I don't want to call it a dyad to be cheesy, but like Favreau and Filoni, like what they each bring to this, like it's a respect for the history, of course, especially with Filoni always like bringing up what George taught him and stuff.
Take a shot every time he says history or George.
Yeah, right. but Favreau's like
a legacy.
Yeah, legacy. Yeah.
I feel like I bring this up every episode for this version of Mando Fan Show, but Favreau's like appreciation for the history of cinema and stuff is so important to this because he understands the history of Star Wars and how George Lucas developed this stuff. So I think those two working together to, like I always say, keep one hand at least on the root of the tree. And if you want to take it all these places, fine, but keep grounded here. And we talked about this on TRB about, genres and Star Wars doing all these different crazy wild things. It's like, no, George created the sandbox and you don't fix it if it's not broken. Mm-hmm. And they respect that so much. And I think they got it. And they understand what makes Star Wars. And I really feel like they have their finger on the pulse with this thing, which makes me hope that Favreau sticks around and wants to do more Star Wars stuff, whether it's, beyond The Mandalorian or gets involved with a role, because I really buy into what he's doing. And Filoni in the same right. Like, I really do appreciate Dave Filoni more now than I did before The Mandalorian, because for a while, I didn't necessarily love everything he did in animation. I feel like it's hit or miss for me, but there's no doubt that this guy really is a Star Wars fan at heart, but also knows it and loves it. And I think that's so important for this show.
Yeah.
And I think as this show has continued on, you have fallen back on Favreau a lot. Is like, the show is great because you got Favreau doing it and he's genius and we all agree. But oftentimes I'm the one that usually pulls us back to, don't forget, man, Filoni is very much involved in this.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times, the reason that we're able to connect to some of this stuff too isn't just because John is so great, but that Dave is the one that's making sure this story carries through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just saying that, I mean, there's even like a balance between me and you specifically. Like you tend to steer towards Favreau. I tend to steer towards Filoni, even though we both totally recognize the other person's contributions. But I do think that's good. I think, Filoni probably, if left to his own devices, would go too far one way, you know what I mean? And then Favreau pulls him back, and probably the exact opposite. Favreau would be like, let's do this. And Filoni's like, it would actually work better if, we did it this way. I think the things that we've been working on with Clone Wars and Rebels and other things like that, and like the essence of Star Wars, you might be missing it a little bit, Favreau. Let's go back, this way.
Yeah.
And so the match is like a mom and dad or something, or whatever. Like, it just matches.
Right. Totally. So I just thought of something, and this is kind of a little bit of a side note, but I just want to say it so I don't forget. In the episode, they talk about when they're bringing Baby Yoda to life. They sent the script to Filoni. Filoni sketches the two of them touching, like E.T. type thing.
Yeah.
They then say, we then brought in Doug Chang to do all the concept art.
Right.
I can't help but notice, why did they bring in Doug for High Republic?
I know.
I'm throwing it back out there, guys. There is a red flag here that no one's talking about.
No, we're talking about it.
No, I'm saying like outside of our circle.
Outside of our circle.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
The fact that he was brought in for anything is a big kind of like, so we brought him in.
Yeah.
Like, if someone says we brought in John Knoll, you're like, oh, wow, they're going to do crazy special effects, or they need to create something new. Like, if you're bringing in Doug, you're doing big stuff.
Right.
So why did High Republic bring in Doug? I will save that for TRB, but I just want to say it there. I'm very, very curious, because I don't think he was brought in to conceptualize book characters.
Yeah. No,
because he's so
doubt.
good. That's what I'm saying. Like, he is the best of the best. So when they bring him in, you're like, yes, that would make sense that they'd bring him in to conceptualize Baby Yoda and to go to his team and figure out what this thing looks like.
If you guys,
he was on the set. I was like,
we get into this, yesterday's episode, TRB, about the High Republic delays, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
check that out. Because we know you don't just like
what
The Mandalorian.
day is it?
Yeah.
I feel like Jumanji over here. What year?
It doesn't help that our news episode was on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And other stuff.
Check out our takes on that, because we think we may be onto something. But in terms of this, James, I do agree with you that there is that kind of balance. You like to pull back on the Filoni thing, but I think I talk. Yeah, you're right. I think I talk about Favreau more than not, because it's clear to me that he is the guy on this show. Like, he's in the mix, and he's even helping with their directing, and he's like bringing Filoni along in terms of like teaching him. And Filoni even called Favreau his like second mentor to George.
He has a more live action experience than Dave Filoni.
He just has, he's like just big time, right? Mm-hmm. And he kicked off the MCU, for Pete's sake, but. I think Star Wars fans, I think the main reason why I really try to bring...
For Robert's sake.
I try to bring Favreau up more and more is because Star Wars fans see Mandalorian stuff and they're always like, Filoni's killing it. Oh, man, thank God for Filoni. I'm like, this is Jon Favreau's show, guys. Like, Filoni's great, and he's adding so much to it, and it wouldn't be what it is without him. But let me tell you right now, this is Jon Favreau's operation.
He calls him Coach, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, Star Wars fans need to accept Jon Favreau. He may not have grown up under the wing of George Lucas, but the dude is the dude.
He got George Lucas to say okay to a Baby Yoda, so he's doing something right.
Yeah. And I hope he probably won't, but man, imagine if Favreau and Filoni like step in and take over creative for Lucasfilm. I think people would lose their minds in a good way.
I would lose my mind. That'd be awesome.
I would. I 100% would.
Yeah, I think Favreau still wants to be like on site and directing and stuff like that, but he's probably thinking at some point as he gets older, like being producer, is a good gig, and where better to land than something like ILM.
Yeah,
not ILM, but Lucasfilm.
Yeah. Lucasfilm. Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts on this episode about the practical effects or anything else you want to toss in? A little bit of a potpourri before we get out of here?
Go ahead, James.
Not particularly, other than I think this is probably, I don't know, maybe the one with the technology, but this might be the most rewatchable episode because I feel like there's a lot in there that you could miss if you blink for a second.
I agree,
Yeah.
100%. I think, again, this is my favorite episode. I know that everyone listening is like, of course it is, Lacey. It was my favorite episode so far, and I think one of the things that really drives it home for me, which I've always stood by, is using practical effects and props and puppets and stuff like that to make your films and TV shows stand the test of time, because no matter when you watch the show, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's gonna hold its own, because they went that extra step of making everything from the volume to Baby Yoda to the props and costumes and everything so real that there's nothing you look at is going to be like, oh, that looks weird.
Right.
Whereas, the prequels are great, but there's a lot of stuff there that you look at and you're like, I'm getting taken out of this because it just doesn't feel real to me. Whereas you watch the original trilogy and it stands up because you're like, they're in these places. They built Dagobah. Their Yoda is there. So it makes sense.
And, this was my favorite episode too. And I think it's because they relied way less on the round table and it felt like something more, let's come on in here. Let's peel the curtain back. Come on in. Like James, you said like you felt like you were on set, or and Lacey, you felt like you wanted to follow where they go next and that sort of thing. And they really gave you that feeling that you're more there than come on in this room and we're going to talk about this stuff, but you can't go in there. We're going to talk about it here. I really, it was a big difference for me. So I really enjoyed it. In addition to all the nerdiness and awesomeness of making Star Wars intangible, and I can touch this thing, and I love that.
I think it's because they brought in so many interviews outside of the round table, of the people and creators and model builders and whatnot.
Yeah.
That then expanded those points of view from the 5 people sitting at that table with a black tablecloth.
Yeah. It looks like they're playing like poker.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get out of here for now. Next week we're going to talk about the 6th of 8. So we're almost
my new favorite episode.
Home stretch. Visualization is the next one.
Oh.
So I have no idea what that means. So I'm really looking forward to that. James, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MyraChunks.
Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening or watching the Mando Fan Show. We'll be back with you on Monday for the Resistance broadcast, where we make it all about you. All of your questions, a pod race, all of your funny tweets. It's all about you on Monday. And then, of course, next week we have a great episode with Ryan Rucco, the play-by-play guy for the New York Yankees, who we had such a fun time talking with him. But we hope you enjoyed this one. Leave in the comments what you thought about not only the Mandalorian episode itself, but also our takes on all these things. And were there things that we didn't bring up? Because, an hour is a short hour to talk about a 30-minute show. But still, we could have kept going on this one. So we just want to thank you all for your support, especially our patrons at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. The Mando Fan Show does not exist without your support, so we really appreciate that. Make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news. I also have my written review of this episode over there as well. And subscribe to TRB. Enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you next time right here on the Mando Fan Show.